Story time with Game Master Mike. Hey folks, this is going to be another story video about me going on my own when I was a child. I remember sneaking away from my parents, especially going on bike rides to places when I was a kid. Although I did not ask permission, I just went on my own. But I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about me getting into trouble because I did not tell my parents when I was gone. So this is going to be a couple of stories which I want to tell you all and how I've gotten into more trouble. You know, when I was a kid, my parents used to argue a bit over the most stupidest things. I remember my mom going for a ride, like driving around the neighborhood or driving into town to cool off. Well, here's the thing. When I was a child, how come I couldn't do that? How come I could not get my bike and just drive around? And so this is going to be a story about that. It was Easter Sunday. I was 6 years old at the time. I remember my parents yelled at me on the way home from church because I've misbehaved and I was being disruptive. I remember during church, because I did those things, one of the ushers walked up to my parents and told them that you need to settle down your kid or you need to leave. And so I have gotten into a lot of trouble, gotten into trouble for church because, you know, Easter Sunday I had to get up early. I was forced to wear a suit and tie to church on Easter Sunday. I want to go Easter egg hunting, by the way, and eat some food. Apparently, we drove home. My parents yelled at me on the way, and I have gotten into trouble. They were still mad at me because I've misbehaved at church. And so here's what I did. It was around that afternoon. I've grabbed my bike, did not even bother wearing a helmet because my parents always bothers me. Every time you ride a bike, you gotta wear a helmet. So I was 6 at the time. I believe in my home state, you don't have to wear a helmet when you're 13, but I'm not sure about that. So I have to look for more details. So I lived close to Prickett's Fort State Park, which is about a good 2-mile drive, which is a long distance for a 6-year-old child. So I grabbed my bike. I've driven down to the fort. And so I went there. I explored like some trails, rid my bike all over the place. Now, what extremely devastated me? It was not like I was running away from home. I would never do something like that. So right when I was coming back, I saw my dad drove up in his car, and then he pulled to the side of the road, and he yelled at me. He said that I did not ask permission to go on a bike ride, plus I did not wear a bicycle helmet, which was the most dumbest thing I've ever did. I could have fallen off my bike, busted my head, had to be taken to the hospital, which I thought about wearing a helmet, but I did not. So I got into trouble. I went in the car. My dad put my bike in the trunk of the car. Right as soon as my dad drove me home, my mom yelled at me. She told me to go to my room, and I was devastated. I cried my eyes out in my room. And my mom was crying because she thought that I got kidnapped, and pretty much that. Because of that, I wasn't allowed to go outside to play for a week. Plus, I got my TV and my Sega Genesis taken away from me. And so that really did devastated me a lot. And my parents, for dinner, my parents cooked something simple, not like an Easter feast. It was like ramen noodles because they were pretty much arguing all day and night about that, about me going off. And so I needed to cool off, and then that had gotten me into trouble. Another thing that, hold up. Another thing that had gotten me into even more trouble is when I was in the 6th grade. At that time, I've received a week of in-school suspension because I shoved somebody during recess. And that Sunday, anyway, we went to the Harlem Globetrotters game in Morgantown because the Globetrotters was in Morgantown having a basketball game. And so we all got to go. And so right at the beginning of the 3rd quarter, I asked my mom and dad if I could get a drink. And they said yes. And you know what I did? The entire 3rd quarter, I pretty much walked around the Coliseum. And then later, I got my drink. And my dad was there, not happy. He grabbed my shoulder and said, "You get your ass over there." And my mom was upset about that. And we pretty much got up and left. And my dad yelled at me on the way home. So that was the couple of things that I have gotten into a ton of trouble because I've wandered by myself without telling my mom and dad where I was going. And I was pretty much grounded that entire time. And pretty much, if you're young, please ask your parents of where you are going because you will be getting into a ton of trouble. You don't know what's going to happen. You could get badly hurt. And so that is my stories of going on my own. Well, folks, there you go. And until next time, thanks for watching.